summer to the listeners of Kevin's Corner. We are back. Another edition of the Kevin's Corner podcast. I'm Kevin Bowen, joined as always by Joey Molinaro. Joey, a little news, I guess, to start off this week's podcast. We're going to get into a 53-man roster breakdown. We're going to get into how the rookies, the draft picks look during the spring offseason program. But before we go anywhere, let's go ahead and break down this training camp schedule.
Yeah, man. It's a little different than last year. Second year at Grand Park, but I know we loved it up there, so very excited.
Yeah, state-of-the-art facility, to say the least, up there. And I really think the Colts are, I want to say there's only like 10 or 11 teams that go off-site for training camp anymore. I mean, that number has seriously dwindled over the past decade. So that's the good news. It's free and it's open to the public, and there's not a lot of NFL teams that do that anymore. The bad news is no night practices here in 2019. So the Colts' first practice at Grand Park will be July 25th. That is a Thursday afternoon, and they will have 16 practices at Grand Park, 10 of them in the afternoon time. Usually those times are like about 2 to 4:30, 2 to 4. All of this information is available on our website, 1070thefan.com. We also have a video recap on our YouTube page as well that you can check out. So 10 afternoon sessions, 6 in the morning. I don't know, man. I thought they could have thrown in maybe 1 or 2 night practices.
Yeah, it's good. But, I mean, those 4 to 6, though, like, there would be people who will be able to take.
Well, there's only 2 of those.
Yeah.
There's only 2 4 to 6ers, and that's both when the Browns are in town. So,
Which is going to be a big crowd anyway.
If you're not there by 2:30, you're probably not getting a seat that day.
Yeah.
So those Browns practices are August 14th and August 15th. That's a Wednesday and Thursday, and that ends camp. So 3 full weeks up at Grand Park. Basically, it sounds like the football operations side of things. You know, Chris Ballard and company, they just didn't love the idea of night practices for their players in terms of recovery and all of that. You know,
and just like a turnaround from a night to an afternoon the next day, or what?
Correct.
Yeah.
Which then my thinking is this: okay, throw a night practice on Sunday the 28th when you have the off day, Monday the 29th.
Right,
that's what the Colts. I know that's what they did up at Anderson, or even that first. I guess the second Thursday practice you have August 1st. You know, throw a little night session at them, and then you have the off day on Friday. The good news with this schedule, again, no night practice. I know it's difficult for people to get off work, so a lot of people will be frustrated with that. All 6 weekend days the Colts are at training camp, they will practice. So that's every Saturday and Sunday. It looks like the first 2 weekends, those are 2 to 4 o'clock type of practices. The 27th and 28th of July, and then the 3rd and 4th of August. And then the final weekend time that they're up at Grand Park, those will be morning practices. Saturday morning, the 10th from 9 to 10:40, and then Sunday morning, the 11th from 9 to 11:15.
So Mrs. Bowen not too happy with the Colts training camp schedule then?
Probably not. Probably not, no. I think that's a fair statement, to say the least. God, at first I thought you were referencing my mom. I'm still getting used to like the Mrs. Bowen is my wife.
Yeah.
And my mom was a teacher, so when I hear Mrs. Bowen, I think like, back
You're
in the
used to that.
But yeah, we'll be up there, Grand Park, move-in day, the 24th of July. So that's when things will ramp up big time, and we will have a lot of coverage. So yeah, again, head to the website 1070thefan.com if you have not seen the full training camp schedule.
Yeah, an article that was up this week, a couple of them actually, looking at the depth chart, looking at the 90-man look. Obviously, they're going to cut it down to 53 come training camp. So let's dive into that. I'm going to throw out some positions to you,
cool,
and then we'll just talk about what you think will happen
there.
So let's start with running back. What's going to happen there?
You know, I thought in general, Joey, it was and this is something I guess we talked on last week's podcast, there's just not a lot of weakness at a position group. Yes, there might be some questions about how elite level you are at certain position groups, but I think there's a balance throughout your roster. Running back, for me, where it gets tough is just juggling numbers and looking at what Frank Reich did last year. Like when we were predicting the 90-man roster this time last year, we didn't know how Frank Reich would operate things on a game day, or how would Matt Eberflus handle his defensive unit. Well, now we know this, that he really didn't rely on more than 2 running backs on a game day. Jordan Wilkins saw his time in the backfield go from week 1 starter to barely even seeing the field late in the season. I want to say over the final 2.5 months, basically once Marlon Mack got healthy, Wilkins averaged like a carry and a half per game, playing maybe 10 snaps, maybe on average. I think it was less than that. I think it was only like 6 or 7. So that's the question that I have, and why right now I only go with 3 running backs on the 53-man roster. It's probably a number short. The Colts carried 4 last year, but they would always have that healthy scratch in Jonathan Williams. And I hate to do this, but right now I'm probably going to keep Spencer Ware over Jordan Wilkins.
Ah, man, our guy.
Yeah. I think we interviewed him last year up at Grand Park.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. Seems like a very nice guy. And I could obviously be wrong in this. Like, seeing 3 running backs, seeing that number 3 next to the running back, I'm kind of like, that's too many, or that's too few, Kevin. Like, what are you doing? You need insurance policy at a position that has a lot of attrition. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking, can I sneak someone to the practice squad? Is that something you can do? But I just think with Ware, hearing Frank Reich talk about him, I just think he gives you a different dynamic if healthy, in that he is that true kind of, he can be a bit of a bully in the backfield for you.
Yeah.
Frank Reich mentioned a couple weeks ago, if this was old school and we were running the I formation, he'd be at the top of the I. Like, he's that sort of runner.
Right.
So I think that balances out what you have when Marlon Mack is the bell cow, Nyheim Hines is still going to be your third down back. Now the question is just who emerges. And again, how much do you use a third running back? That's what I'm going off of with this number 3. And also, as we get into these other positions, Joey, you need to find numbers somewhere, so that means you have to eliminate numbers elsewhere. That's the whole twofold scenario in trying to cut down a 90-man roster down to 53. So I'm keeping 3 right now. I don't love it, and I don't love cutting Jordan Wilkins. But, if you haven't already, look at 1070thefan.com and the 90-man roster that I've cut down to 53. It's tough.
Well, so let's say that Spencer Ware and Jordan Wilkins both come in physically, they're about the same, right? They're both way about the same. I know you said Jordan Wilkins wanted to notch it up with his weight.
Get a little bigger, yeah.
Get a little bigger this offseason. Let's say that happens. Let's say both are having a pretty solid camp. Wouldn't it go in favor of Wilkins because he's younger, he's been in the system already for a year, or cheaper?
Yeah.
Or they like that veteran?
I totally hear where you're coming from. Jordan Wilkins is a 5th-round pick. He's under contract for a few more years. I think Spencer Ware, I'm pretty sure the deal was just 1 year. A little bit older, has an injury history here in the league as well. So I think Chris Ballard has shown us that he's okay with cutting draft picks. Like, all right, Zach Banner later. Terrell Basham maybe held on to that a hair longer, but I think that was more to do with the actual position.
True.
In terms of pass rusher, and those take a little bit longer to develop. So yeah, look, you make a really strong case, Joey, and I can be talked into it both ways. And I have a feeling that how I pencil in the running back group in future 53-man roster looks between now and August 31st when it's actually official, this is going to change for me. And I do think there is an element there of if it's tied or Wilkins shows a little bit more, he's going to make the team. It's not like Spencer Ware to me is like a slam dunk, but I think given the history of Ware with Chris Ballard and Frank Reich clearly liking what he's seen so far, I just think that can separate Spencer Ware a little bit.
Hot topic going into training camp is going to be wide receivers. People ask about them every week. What do you think is going to happen there? Will they keep 5? Maybe 1 more? Yeah,
I'm going to keep 5 right now, Joey. Some people would like to keep 6. Frank Reich, unprovoked threw out the number 4 or 5 a few weeks ago. So I'm even going, I guess, on the back end of that. I think 5 is a very fair number. And I think I've said it a few weeks ago, Joey. I look at 4 guys as almost a lock. Like Deion Kane, if he's not on PUP, which it doesn't sound like they want to put him on PUP, he's on your roster. You got Paris Campbell, you've got Devin Funchess, and you've got T.Y. Hilton. Those are 4 locks. Right now, I rounded out with Chester Rogers. Zach Pascal and Marcus Johnson and Reese Fountain those guys are all knocking on that door. But I think the special teams element is so key with Rodgers.
Yeah.
And I think that's what ultimately separates him. So 3 running backs, 5 receivers. Some people will kind of scoff at that. Could you go one more number? But for now, I'm gonna keep it at 5.
We know Frank Reich likes a lot of multiple tight end sets, but is there a chance there could be too many tight ends for the Colts?
Maybe, and this is where I might be a number high. I think if most people were making a 53-man roster right now, they might have 4 running backs, 3 tight ends. Mm-hmm. I'm going 3 running backs, 4 tight ends. And I look at it because I think my 3rd and 4th tight end, if I'm Chris Ballard, I think of that as a much higher ceiling than my 3rd or 4th running back.
True.
And you can't ignore what you have down the road. Maybe you could sneak Ross Travis. I assume he still has practice squad eligibility. Maybe you could sneak him through to that. But if he's healthy and shows up in some preseason games, that's something to where you have to keep an eye on that of like, oh my, he could get claimed somewhere and go to a 53-man roster. So
how does that work with the practice squad eligibility?
It is, you have like a veteran exemption, I think, on one spot. Boy, I need to look this up. It seemingly changes every year. I think you need to have if you have 2 accrued seasons, which is defined as like a handful of games that you've played at least a handful of games, then I think you don't have practice squad eligibility. But if you're under those numbers, and again, there is that one exemption, it's a 10-man practice squad. So I think Travis would still be eligible, but I just need to double check that. But right now, I'm going to keep 4 tight ends. I think I've spoken very highly of Travis before. Mo Alley Cox being that 3rd tight end, and obviously Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle atop that depth chart. But I'm going to go with 4. Yes, probably one eye towards 2020. But also, let's remember this. The Colts ran with 5 tight ends on their 53-man roster a lot last season.
Yeah.
A lot. So this is not just me liking some of the potential of this group. It's also Frank Reich and Chris Ballard certainly liking the potential they have at tight end, but also wanting to rely on versatile guys that have varying skill sets. So right now I've got 4 tight ends.
Chris Ballard loves to build up front, and right now the O-line, the D-line seem to be in pretty solid shape.
Yeah, I'll use the term status quo, Joey, and that might be not giving the depth guys enough credit to compete for it. But right now, I'm going to go with 9 offensive linemen and 10 defensive linemen. The 9 offensive lineman number, again, might be a 1 short of what Chris Ballard would like, but I look at D-line and I'm like, who am I cutting out of that group? Like, if Ben Banigou is a defensive lineman, I don't know who you are cutting of the 10 that I'm keeping, and that is your 4 starters, the guys right around 30 years old, Jabal Sheard, Justin Houston, Marcus Hunt, Danico Autry, and then your backups, Banigou, Al-Qadim Muhammad, Kamoko Turi off the edge, and then the interior guys, Grover Stewart, Tyquan Lewis, and Jihad Ward. I mean, those to me are 10 names that I don't know how you get around cutting one of those guys. So the offensive line depth, only 4 backups. I mean, you only dress 7 on game day. So it's like, I don't really want more than 2 offensive linemen as my 7 inactive. So I'm probably more inclined to keep 9 offensive linemen than most. Again, maybe you're able to sneak Jackson Barton, your 7th round pick, to the practice squad, something like that. So right now I've got 19 guys in the trenches, 9 on the O-line and 10 on the D-line.
All right, you put for linebacker straightforward. Maybe I'm just missing it, but what do you mean by that?
So straightforward in this, Joey, is I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of battling at the back end of this group. Maybe there is with Zaire Franklin pushing, but for me, I go with the 2 draft picks, I guess, from last year in EJ Speed, Bobby Okereke. Obviously, you have Darius Leonard and Anthony Walker coming back to health, and then Matthew Adams would be the other one. Who am I missing in that group?
Speed, Adams, Leonard.
I guess did I put Franklin on that 53-man roster? Let me pull it up just to double check here.
Okay.
Yeah, I have Franklin making it. So, yeah, the guys that I'm cutting right now, Joey, would be Sky Moore, Ahmad Thomas, and Trey Thomas. And I just don't know if there's a whole lot of, Sky Moore was your starting Mike week 1 last year, but, you just drafted Bobby Okereke, so it's kind of like, okay, where's your depth at Mike? So I'm going with the 3 linebackers you drafted in 2018, Adams, Franklin, Leonard. The 2 you drafted this year, Okereke and Speed, and then the 1 you drafted back in 2017, and Anthony Walker. So that's why I say kind of straightforward to me. I just don't know if Sky Moore, Ahmad Thomas, and Trey Thomas can push a whole lot to get on the 53-man roster.
Moving into the secondary, there's going to have to be some names cut from the corner list.
Yeah, these are probably the most high-profile names that I will be cutting. I'm actually cutting Nate Hairston and Jalen Collins. And again, some people are going to be a little bit shocked by that or feel like they can, how do you get another number at corner there? Because I'm keeping Chris Milton. And I know a lot of people don't want to put too much stock into special teams, but this is how you have to look at that. If you're going to keep 6 corners and your debate is Jalen Collins or Chris Milton, your 6th corner on a game day is not seeing the defensive field. He's just not. When you go to nickel, that means you have 3 corners on the field. When you go to dime, you still only have 3 corners on the field because you bring in usually an extra safety. That's where that position has evolved, where maybe this year it's Matthias Farley as your 6th DB in that dime package.
It's almost exclusively its own position.
Right.
Like it's now no longer looked as a safety or a corner. You're a dime player.
And I think it's something to where when you evolve in your packages, obviously in your base, you have 2 corners and 2 safeties. Then when you go to nickel and you have 5 defensive backs in the field, now you have 3 corners. When you go to dime and you put 6 defensive backs in the field, you don't go 4 corners, you stick with 3 corners, and then you go 3 safeties, usually with that 3rd safety allowing you to push Clayton Gathers into a linebacker role or whoever, that bigger body safe. Maybe it's Kari Willis. Maybe he shows up a little bit more. So I look at the 6th corner and I say, if Chris Milton's going to be as good as he was last year, I mean, him and Rigoberto, they won you football games last year with how they flipped field position, coffin corner punting. The Colts led the NFL in punt coverage last year. That, to me, is worthy of a 53-man roster spot. Look, I thought Hairston and Collins had really good springs. And the 5 above them, I don't know who you're cutting. I don't think you're cutting Marvell Tell. You obviously aren't cutting Rock Yassin. I don't think you're cutting Quincy Wilson. And we sure as hell know Kenny Moore and Pierre Desir are starting.
Right.
So this is deep, Joey. This is the hardest position group to pare down. And it will come down to a couple factors. Hairston and Collins have to establish themselves on special teams to some degree. Milton has battled some injuries. He's got to stay healthy because he's a one-trick pony. Like, he's got to be your best gunner or else he doesn't make the team. And then also, I think Marvell Tell just needs to make sure that he shows up. I don't think they would cut him because they know there's a little bit of development there. But he was a 5th-round pick, and there's Nate Hairston, who used to be a starter for you, and there's Jalen Collins, who used to start in a Super Bowl. So there's something there.
Yeah.
Knocking on that door. But, yeah, I got 6 corners right now.
We'll finish up with the safeties, Kevin. That's a pretty deep position group on paper as well. What do you do there?
I think this one is pretty obvious. I'm going to keep 5 safeties. Malik Hooker, Clayton Gathers starting, and then your backups. Matthias Farley and George Odom are 2 players that Chris Ballard absolutely loves, and clearly he loves Kari Willis if he's going to trade up 20 spots to take him in that 4th round. So I look at those 5 safeties. I guess you're cutting Derek Kindred and Roland Milligan, who are some people, they've spent time on 53-man rosters in the NFL before. But I think 11 defensive backs is a good number. 6 at corner, 5 at safety. That's how I view things. And if you bump up 1 at running back, then where are you taking 1 away? Because I feel like I'm limiting corner. 6 linebackers, some people might want to keep 7. 9 offensive linemen, some people might want to keep 10. I guess I have an extra tight end in some people's eyes, but it's going to be tough, man.
All right. Well, let's move on. You ready to move on to the rookie playing time?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it's good news because I looked up on Google Colts 2019 draft picks, and your article on 1070 is the first one to pop up. So,
Ooh.
little SEO, it's working in our favor there.
Like
on,
that. Okay.
The Colts rookies. So here we're going to talk playing time, like you said. I'll just throw the pick out, and you tell us what you think's going to happen with him.
Cool.
We'll start with round 2, pick 34. Rock. Yeah, it's Sin, right? Or is it Scene?
Scene. I don't know.
I've heard multiple people say Scene. It's spelled Sin.
Yeah, I think I go through a podcast and I say about half and half.
Okay.
I feel like I say sin and then I'm like, man, is that a bad word?
Where we grew up, sure.
Yeah, I mean, not a bad word, but
yeah, you think bad.
Yeah.
Anyways, round 2, pick 34. Rock.
I like that. It took until about the last week of the offseason program, Joey, and some injuries were there, but he got some starting run late in the spring, and he looked like a guy to me that has traits that make you believe he belongs. Was it all perfect? No, but this is a guy that looks like he deserves to be on an NFL field. I think it'll come down to this. I think it'll be Quincy Wilson and him for the starting nickel corner. And that obviously is a huge position for this team. So we know Wilson had the thumb kind of bandaged up, wrapped up, casted up, whatever you want to call it, late there in the spring. But I still think Pierre Desir and Kenny Moore are your starters. And again, it took Rock a little bit of time, which was expected. He played a ton of man in college. We had Nathan Burton as position coach on a couple weeks ago. If you missed that pod, check it out. And Coach Burton talked about it. He followed guys around, did a shadow role. So learning the zone, I think, is a little bit different for Rock. But right now, I look at him as competing to be the nickel corner come training camp.
Round 2, pick 49. Linebacker turned defensive lineman now. Looks like Ben Banigou.
Yes, and I think that is the key element, Joey. He is now a defensive end. We'll see if that changes during camp. Matt Eberflus kind of threw out you want him to have a good starting base, and he feels most comfortable at defensive end. Now, it is a lot different from what he did at TCU. He's got his hand in the ground. It is more here, it's just get upfield and go after the quarterback. At TCU, it was you're standing up, you're reading and reacting. So it's a lot different for what the responsibilities are. But Banigou was a guy a month ago we thought would be a 16-game starter. I'd be very surprised if he came close to that, honestly, as a rookie. If he's going to be a defensive end, he's probably a second-teamer at best. Justin Houston, Jabal Sheard aren't coming off the field. Al-Qadim Muhammad, I still think, gives you good snaps. And then it's kind of, okay, is Banigou or Toure competing for that fourth DN spot? Now, when sub-packages start to get developed, Banigou might have a role there. But in terms of a 3-down, 16-game starter, unless he moves back to that same linebacker position, I think we can rule that out.
Round 3, pick 89, linebacker Bobby Okereke.
Campbell.
Oh my goodness! Did I miss Paris Campbell?
Yeah. We got Campbell. Did I have him in there? Paris.
I missed him. Sorry. Yeah, Paris Campbell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second round, pick 59. Joey, I think it's something where he didn't make a ton of plays with the starting offense in the spring, but it's one thing that I feel like live settings serve him a little bit better. When it's full tackling and you got to kind of chase him and bring him down, that will be just maybe a truer evaluation for him. So it looks like Chester Rogers and Paris Campbell are the team slot wideouts. I think Campbell might not be that every down slot receiver for you, but I still think he's going to have some sort of package to where he is giving you very meaningful snaps. And certainly when he's on the field, he's going to touch the football. It's kind of like early last year when Nyheim Hines was on the field. Maybe he didn't play every snap, but you felt like when he was out there, he was touching the football a lot. Same thing with Eric Ebron. When Ebron's out there, it's probably going to be a passing play.
Right.
Like those sorts of things. I think that's what we'll see from Campbell.
Now let's go to round 3, pick 26, 89th overall, Bobby Okereke.
Yeah, this is the guy right now, Joey, that I think is competing for a starting job. I do. I still think Anthony Walker will win that job. I think Anthony Walker deserves that job. But Bobby Okereke, him getting some snaps, late in the spring and even on passing downs come this fall, I think is very, very possible. I just think it's difficult from the cerebral nature to totally throw a rookie out there and be like, you're our starting Mike linebacker, and don't come off the field. Because that's the thing with Okereke. He's your Mike that would definitely play on passing downs. So, do you kind of want to scale him into that role, whereas using him a lot on rundowns where he might be exposed, and then obviously he's just playing a whole ton of snaps. So Okereke, I think, showed in the spring. With Darius Leonard out, he was playing alongside Anthony Walker a lot. But I think if there is one defensive position battle that literally might be head-to-head right now, it's probably Walker versus Okereke. But again, I still think Walker is the favorite there.
Guy that Chris Ballard really, really likes. They traded up big time to get him. Round 4, 109 overall, Khari Willis.
Yeah, Joey, I was surprised that maybe he didn't get a few more prominent looks in the spring. Because remember, you didn't have Clayton Geathers. But it was Malik Hooker, it was George Odom, it was Matthias Farley, and it might even have been those other safeties I mentioned earlier, Kindred and Milligan, over Willis. So I think that it's something to where I still believe there's an opportunity for him to play a little bit as a rookie, but I think right after the draft, we thought there was a real chance he could see the field in some sub packages, and now I'm just not as confident in saying that. So I look at Willis as a guy that might be more relegated to special teams in this first year, and who knows, if Clayton Geathers gets hurt, or this time next year when Clayton Geathers could be gone as a one-year free agent currently on this roster, maybe it's Willis competing for that safety job next to Hooker.
Let's move on to round 5 now. 144th overall, Marvell Tell.
Man, he's big. I mean, that's the first thing that you notice, Joey. I think when we get out there July 25th at training camp, that'll be one of the first things that you say to me, like, who is 39? It's like
lean, long.
Yeah, long. But like I said earlier, it's going to be tough, man. Like, as a corner, I just don't see where he cracks that action. Special teams is going to have to be his early role, and I could honestly see him being a potential healthy scratch with how everything is right now. So I noticed Tell a little bit late in the spring. He got some run in some sub packages. Again, there were a lot of guys at corner banged up in front of him, but this is a guy that I want to see a little bit more of in the in training camp, and then just some full padded sessions. See how versatile he is, because I think that's something that Chris Ballard praised as well.
One more pick out of round 5, and that's EJ Speed, 164 overall.
Yeah, again, probably about a month and a half ago, Joey, I would have said, can EJ Speed make this roster? And now I think he can definitely make this roster. I think he'll be a special teams player for you, and that's probably about it. He would, I guess you classify him as Darius Leonard's backup. If Leonard went down for a substantial amount of time, maybe you would rotate some guys in there. But I still believe that Speed should make this team. But I'd be surprised if he played much on defense. He did get some starting action in the spring, but again, that came with Darius Leonard's sideline.
Round 6 now. Gary, right?
Gary
Green.
Gerri, Gary. Man.
Big time Jerry, but I gotta just pull through and Gary.
That'd be a good little spelling bee award.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you say that they all tied?
For what?
National Spelling Bee Award? Like
really?
10 of them tied for the win.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, but
are we soft? I mean, how soft is that?
I don't know. Now we're turning into the guys on the right instead of the chicks on the right or something.
Yeah, You're right. Sorry about that. All right, rein it back. All right, Gary Green. You almost feel bad for Green. I guess when you're a 6th or 7th round pick, this is kind of the situation you walk into. But I'm wondering where Ben Banogu and Kamoko Turi are going to get defensive snaps consistently. Well, what about Gary Green?
Yeah.
He's going to be in a fight just to make this roster. I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch the D-line maybe as closely as I will in training camp when full pads come on, but it's just difficult for me to see him cracking that top 4 or 5 in the defensive end room. So This is going to be, based off what I saw in the spring, I didn't see him in the top 4 or 5. So this is going to be very difficult, I think, for Green to find playing time / even make the roster.
Then let's round it out with the 2 offensive linemen that were picked in the draft, round 7, Jackson Barton and Javon Patterson.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Patterson tore his ACL, so nothing there for him in 2019. Barton, to me, Joey, is probably looking at the practice squad. Antonio Garcia being suspended for the first 4 games of the season, that could open up a spot early on, but I think you could probably get by with like a LaRaven Clark, Jamarcus Webb, maybe Joe Haig, sort of look there. So from what I saw in the spring, I never really noticed Barton getting many second-team reps.
All right, man, you ready to get into some Twitter questions?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's hop in with Joshua Sutton. He says, there's a narrative out there among fans of other teams that Andrew Luck is injury-prone and not a durable player. I disagree with that notion and believe no context was considered. What's your opinion on that narrative?
Is that a narrative?
It's hard to think about that here.
Yeah.
Because I bet if we're in Cleveland, they have something to say.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like you always have kind of the negative connotation look at other quarterbacks. Like
right.
When you look at Marcus Mariota, he really, I don't think, has been banged up as much as like we think he has. But
everybody in other markets has the first take opinion for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, what did Max Kellerman say? Oh, okay.
Yeah, could not agree more.
Must be true.
No, I don't look at Luck as injury prone. Like, to me, injury prone is like a few nagging injuries that you just like, oh my gosh, a hamstring's kept you out a month and a half. That ankle injury has kept you out a month or 2. Like, that to me is injury prone. Like, at the end of the day, like, Luck lacerated his kidney.
Yeah.
Played through a torn labrum for a whole year. And then because of that, had to miss another year. So, like, I don't know. I just think, to me, he's tough. I mean, watch him, watch any film of him.
Yeah.
His first 3 years in this league, he's just getting his head blown off behind such a shitty offensive line.
Yep.
I can't go there at all, man.
Me either. Stan Cal, who is one guy no longer on the Colts roster who was one of, quote, your guys, and in retrospect made you eat a little crow? How about a guy on the roster now who, if this year is a disappointment, may make you think your faith might be misplaced? Answer cannot include Quincy Wilson.
Dude, Stan, this is the summer, man. Aren't we not supposed to think that hard in the summer?
Stan just sits there, I think, with a notepad, 6 days a week leading up to the show, just like writing these Colts riddles for us.
Just like, probably
he thriller laughs. That's what he does.
Yeah.
100%.
Probably Moncrief, Joey.
Ooh.
Now he's your guy.
He is. Yeah, I'm holding out for him.
And I probably haven't written him off yet. He's still young. I mean, how old is he? He can't be much older.
He's like 24, 25. Yeah.
25, I was going to guess. Moncrief would probably be one. In terms of guys that are on the roster that I'm clinging to faith to, oh, boy. I don't know. I've always been a big kind of Ross Travis guy. And I know he probably doesn't fit the narrative of what you're looking for. You're probably looking for like a top 4-round draft pick that didn't pan out. I've always believed in Clayton Gathers. I think injuries have just thrown him such an ugly hand. Kamoko Aturi is a guy, Joey, that I think I was pretty skeptical of, like when he was drafted, of like, all right, that's the production he had at Rutgers. Like that merits a second-round pick. Now, I know that differs from what Stan's asking, but those are some of the guys that come to mind. I don't think this team has like a lot of second or fourth round picks left that are like totally unproven. I will say this. I was very high on Malik Hooker, and I don't think his first 2 seasons have been bust-like by any means, but there are certainly people out there that have questions of like, why isn't he more of a ball hawk? Why isn't he a Pro Bowl safety? Why can't he stay healthy? Mm-hmm. Those sorts of things. So
right.
I guess I don't throw Hooker as much into the big question mark category as maybe some people do, but he's probably a guy that needs to, maybe just ascend to another level.
All right, our guy Daryl Smith says, "What's up, guys? Finally, I'm up in time for a Q&A. Reese Fountain has worked his tail off all offseason. Will it be enough to solidify a roster spot? Hope all is well."
Daryl, thanks for joining us. Yeah, we're coming at you a little bit later on Wednesday. We were both over at the Colts complex earlier today for that training camp schedule release. Will Reese Fountain do enough to make the roster? You know, it's similar to corner, Joey. Like, how many reps a game does your fifth receiver play on offense? Probably none. So that fifth wideout has got to help you in the third phase of the game. And Reese Fountain obviously still has practice squad eligibility. So he's really got to show up on special teams. And Frank Reich mentioned that a couple weeks ago when I asked him about Reese Fountain, and he threw out the special teams caveat. That's why I feel like Chester Rogers and Zach Pascal, those are the first names we need to think about for the fifth wideout until Reese Fountain or Marcus Johnson or Krishawn Hogan, whoever, until they can prove themselves on special teams. You really, really have to be blown away by that wideout's potential and also think you're not going to be able to sneak him to your practice squad to use him up as your fifth wideout.
From Sam, do you think that Luck and T.Y. will ever be able to pass Peyton and Reggie or Marvin in a QB wide receiver ranking?
Oh, no. No, I mean,
even if they won 2 Super Bowls the next 6 years?
I mean, maybe Peyton and Reggie. Peyton and Marvin? Stop.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the class of the class, right? I feel like Jerry Rice, Rice and Young? Maybe.
Yeah, because Jerry Rice had the split between Young and Montana.
And Marvin never had that split. You could even make that argument for Marvin. I mean, Big Ben and Antonio Brown were well on their way to doing something similar. You know, Brady has never had a wideout, I think, for enough years. He's really never had that stud wideout for 5 straight years. No. Something like that.
It's just not how they roll.
I haven't looked up the T.Y. Hilton numbers in a while, Joey, but I assume they're still trending towards this. I mean, that dude he's played, 7 seasons in the NFL? He's put up a Hall of Fame resume.
Mm-hmm.
The touchdowns probably aren't there, but if you look at his yards, through 7 seasons, it's right up there with, the top 5 or 6 wideouts in NFL history. So the longevity has got to be there for Hilton. I would say for him to reach Peyton Reggie, Joey, probably needs the 2 Super Bowls. So yeah, I will say Marvin, no way, just because the sheer quantity of how Peyton and Marvin went about their business and put up those numbers, that's just too much to catch. But I think if you can get 2 Super Bowls, Luck and Hilton, especially being in the same draft class, I feel like that's cool. That has that connection as well.
From Matt T, I like this one. This is a great off-season question here, Kevin. If you could take 3 current Colts players out for beers, who would you want to take? He says his would be Luck, Leonard, and Kenny Moore.
Oh, wow. That is a great question. Yeah, if that makes Kenny Moore open up a little bit more, sure. Kenny Moore is a great guy. I'm sure everyone saw the unbelievable story that's going across the social media avenues, if you will, earlier this week. If you haven't, just scroll through my timeline about Kenny Moore helping out a guy that his dog got hit by a car here in Indianapolis. I believe it was earlier this year. But Kenny Moore does not talk very much, at least to the media. So maybe a few beers would open him up. Like, are we saying, is that what we're getting at here?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'll go with Luck. Go with Justin Houston. Quiet, but I'd like to hear kind of his stories around the league. Like, I don't want too many guys that have just been in the Colts locker room the whole time. I want someone that has a little bit different experiences.
Gotcha.
Then he would be nice just to talk some Belichick stories. But, man, 3 people. Who am I missing? Anybody come to mind for you?
Here's mine. Luck, Nelson, Ebron. You get goofy entertainment with Luck. You get Nelson. You get a few in him, and he's going to be wild like Notre Dame O-line frat boy, and then Ebron's just a clown.
Yeah. No frats at Notre Dame, thankfully.
But he's got that O-line like fraternity.
I mean, he's had some fratty moments this offseason, to say the least. He was in turn 3. He was in the infield, wasn't he? At the race? I think he was in there.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, I think
he was Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he was with Kelce?
I don't think he was, but Kelce was in there.
Kelce was there as well.
Yeah.
God, Kelce looks like a guy.
Him and Kelly. It was
Ryan Kelly would be a guy too,
right?
That I think would be pretty funny.
He can put him down.
All right, I'll go with Luck. I'll go with Houston, and I'll go with Nelson.
Luck, Wilson. What was it one more time?
I'm going Luck, Nelson, Houston. You're going
Luck, Nelson, Ebron.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, you know what you're gonna get with Ebron.
It'll be fun though.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Yash T says, hey, KB, Joey, it's been a while. Really excited about the roster competition this year. I read a report that says that Frank and the offense can get deeper into schemes. What exactly does that mean? Also, what's the longest putt you've ever held before?
Boy, longest putt, I don't know. 50 feet. I mean, who knows? I can't say I've ever measured it out. Yash, not enough, honestly. I don't make enough putts. Okay, he wants to talk about how deep the offense is going to be with Reich. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. The in terms of like the schemes.
The evolvement maybe of the scheme. I do think there's going to be a lot more run pass option in this year's playbook. But for the most part, I think we saw a lot. You know, when you think of the defense has so many different body types, you expect that side of the ball to evolve, become more diverse, you know, have more disguise. Offensively this year, I think more so if it comes with your personnel. A bigger receiver in Funchess. A game-breaking guy post-catch in Campbell. You didn't really do anything at running back. You didn't do anything at tight end. Your O-line's the same. So I think schematically, offensively, a few more run-pass options. I think more of a commitment to the run game in certain spots. I don't think you're going to, force the run game by any means, and you shouldn't. But those are some of the areas that I guess I see this offense taking the next step.
Drew Rush wants to know, is Marlon Mack the running back of the franchise, or will the Colts look to upgrade through the draft or free agency in the future? The reason I ask is because of Jim Irsay's comments about finding Luck his edge. Edgerrin James.
Yeah, that's a great point, Drew. Bringing that up from, I guess, maybe last offseason it was when Irsay brought up the whole edge comment and had everyone thinking Le'Veon Bell or Saquon Barkley maybe as well. I guess it probably would have been more Barkley last year with having the 3rd overall pick early on. Drew, part of me hears you out, but then I also think back to what Irsay said during training camp last year when he's like, Marlon Mack can rush for 1,500 yards. And we're all like, wait, what? Like, Marlon Mack's got to stay healthy. And I wrote something earlier this week on Mack. I think I mentioned it on last week's podcast. Just the feast or famine type of output that he's had. So I think for now, they believe that Marlon Mack can get them to play championship-style football. I do. And until I start seeing some serious investment at running back, it's a 4th-rounder in Mack, a 4th-rounder in Hines, a 5th-rounder in Wilkins. You sit out free agency in some of those higher-name running backs. You kind of wait for a Spencer Ware to show up. I'm just not sure if the Colts will look at running back as that position to invest a whole lot. Now, you might be backed into a nice corner here soon where you look at running back as a position that you do need to upgrade. So maybe that is something to where you feel good about other spots in your team and you look at running back as saying, all right, if we're really going to be a better rushing output team, we need to invest some resources there. But I think right now they do look at Marlon Mack as that guy that can be their feature back.
Ross Smith asks, do you think Ballard will fill the void of Rex Hogan from within, such as Jamie Moore, or will look outside for someone such as Brian Heimerdinger?
Let's put that question on hold.
Okay.
I had one more thought on Mack, Joey.
All right.
Last year, he was 6th in the NFL in rushing yards per game. That should be enough to have a Super Bowl type of team. If your running back is 6th in the NFL in rushing yards per game and you have Andrew Luck, that should be enough to me. So now the question again with Mac is durability and just being more consistent. Those are the next steps for him to get to that level.
So is it going to be Ballard filling the void with Rex Hogan from within, or will he look outside for someone such as Brian Heimerdinger from Ross Smith?
Yeah, Ross, it's a good question. For those that didn't see it, Rex Hogan, who was pretty much third on the Colts ladder here in Indianapolis, left to go become the number 2 man with the Jets. So I know a lot of people were very confused, like, oh my gosh, why is he making this move? Well, in Indianapolis, the assistant general manager is Ed Dodds. And then it's Rex Hogan as vice president of player personnel, I believe is his title. Well, now he goes to the Jets, where Joe Douglas is their new GM, and Hogan gets a bump, becomes number 2 in charge, their assistant general manager. So, yeah, it's something to where I'll be interested to see Ballard and how he makes his hire. Because he has a lot of guys. I mentioned this on Dockich's radio show about a month or 2 ago. Let's say the Colts have 15 guys on their scouting staff. I'm pretty sure only 4 or 5 of those guys are Ballard hires. He really stuck with a lot of the Grigson, even some Polian guys that have just been lifers here. Jamie Moore being one of those guys that he mentions. Jamie Moore, for those that don't know, the area scout that found Darius Leonard and the area scout that has been, when you have the Southeast, you're going to inevitably have a lot of draft picks. But Leonard certainly being a crown jewel for him. So maybe he promotes. We've seen a lot of turnover in Kansas City. Maybe there's a guy from Kansas City. Do you go to Seattle where Ed Dodds was prior? Is there someone out there as well? So I don't have a great idea on that. Part of me is promoting from within is a great reward. But then also maybe some of these guys just don't want to be GMs. Maybe some of them are content doing what they're doing. And think about it, Joey. If you had a great grasp on the Southeast region, certainly you don't want to be pulled off the Southeast region and move to the West where you have to create all new relationships. And you almost have to start from scratch with how you vet these prospects. That's a question I get a lot about Ed Dodds. When is Ed Dodds going to take the GM job? Rex Hogan strikes me as a guy that I always felt wanted to be a GM a little bit more than Ed Dodds. I'm just not 100% slam dunk. I think Ed Dodds is really content in the position that he's in. Just doesn't strike me as a guy that wants to do a whole lot of public facing that inevitably comes with being a general manager in the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, sure, Ed Dodds is incredibly talented, and I'm sure one day it's going to come where he's like, all right, enough is enough. I'm tired of being second fiddle. I want to call all of my own shots. But for now, I think he really likes what he's got going on here with Ballard.
Corey says, with the amount of depth across the roster this year, who do you think could be a cut-down trade like a tight end Darrell Daniels last year?
It's a good question. Is this Corey?
Yep.
Corey, good question. Let's go back to corner, Joey. What about Nate Hairston? What about Jalen Collins? Maybe even tight end again. Defensive line. Now, you might be a little bit scared to trade a guy out of that group, but, let's say Banagoo shows off in the preseason. Whatever. 3 sacks. What about trading Kamoko Turi? Just those are some names I think you throw in there of okay, tight end, D-line, corner. Those are probably the 3 position groups. Maybe safety, but probably more so corner that I would throw in there as some names.
And they would just trade for draft picks?
Probably.
Yeah,
I think with Daniels last year, I thought it was Daniels the Marcus Johnson trade? I couldn't remember if it was Daniels for Marcus Johnson, but usually it's, okay, you're going to cut the guy, trade him to us for a 7th round draft pick so he doesn't get subject to waivers and we might miss out on him.
Got it.
Yeah. So,
okay.
6th, 7th round pick, whatever.
From Jonathan, Josh McCown's retirement has me thinking, what guy or guys make the final 53 roster primarily for being a great teammate, mentor, locker room guy over another player who may be more skilled but lacks those qualities?
Interesting question. I think last year you had more of the leadership guys make this team. Najee Good. I don't want to label maybe Matt Slauson into that category because he started for you, but like, part of the reason that you brought him in was because of his leadership.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the other names that, I guess at safety, Mike Mitchell, that was a reason. I know Mitchell gave you pretty good snaps, but that was another name. But Good especially was a guy that I felt like it didn't even play a single defensive snap for you the final 11 weeks of the season. When I look on this roster, I don't really see anybody that jumps off the page of that. All the corners I'm keeping are pretty young. Pierre Desir deserves to be on the team, and he's 28, 29. Safety, same thing. The three backups are a third-year guy, a second-year guy, and a rookie. Linebacker, incredibly young. Defensive line, I don't see many backups that are getting up there in age. So it's a good question, but I think you've seen a bit of passing of the torch now to where it's like, all right, Darius Leonard, Anthony Walker, you don't need an Ajay Good. You go lead. Like, it's your time to lead that room. I don't see anybody like it running. Like, I don't think Spencer Ware. I think if Spencer Ware makes this team, it's because he's good enough to make this team.
Yeah.
I don't think they look at it as like, oh, he's got the leadership element.
True.
No, I don't. I mean, last year you ran with, hell, you had some games where it was just early on in the season. I felt like it was just the two rookies, Wilkins and Hines.
Right.
So I think you've deviated from that a little bit here in 2019.
Casey with a K wants to know, how rare is it for 21 of 22 starters, both coordinators, and the head coach to be the same from one year to the next? And do you think that will help us avoid the slow start we had last year?
I feel like Casey with a K likes country music, maybe NASCAR.
Casey Kane, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Diluting your mind a little bit with that.
Right. Totally forgot the question.
Wants to know, how rare is it that 21 of 22 starters are back, both coordinators, head coach, and if that continuation will help avoid a slower start?
Extremely rare. I don't know how the hell I would look that up. Probably waste the next month of my summer. But I think that is incredibly rare. When you combine, like Casey said, 21 of 22 starters, and then 3 coordinators. I do think it can help the slow start. Now, the schedule, the toughest stretch to me is the first 5 weeks.
Right.
That's the difficult nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
Of you can play better football early on, but man, it's at the Chargers, at the Titans, at the Chiefs in 3 of those first 5 weeks, and then boom, you've got home games against 2 very competent quarterbacks in the Falcons and Matt Ryan, and the Raiders and Derek Carr. So, it is a huge, huge focus. I know some people have asked about full padded practices, kind of how that impacts, the start of the season, making sure that you're good to go week 1. Looks like pretty much similar amount. I think last year the Colts had like 9 of their 15 practices were in full pads. A far, far uptick from Chuck Pagano. I saw Chuck on Monday.
Really?
He was at Anthony Calhoun's golf.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Chuck and Tina Pagano were out there. So Chuck seems to be doing well.
Good.
Hell, if I was coaching that defense, I'd be doing well.
Right. Jeez. Hey, Khalil, go get him. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, certainly we saw an uptick in the full padded stuff. And honestly, I think the bigger thing is this, Joey. Going to week 1 with your starting running back and your starting left tackle not on the bench. And I feel like there were even a couple more injuries that I'm forgetting about. But yeah, that's something to where I do expect the continuity to help you. There should be no learning curve when the regular season starts. It's just the schedule speaks for itself.
The Barking Cow, love the Barking Cow, regular listener. If you don't know the dog, you know about the Barking Cow, right?
Yeah.
Whipping up delicious ice cream in Gaston, Indiana. They say Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Jeff George. You have to take 1 to fight a couple dudes, 1 to pick up chicks, and 1 to take for a nice ice cream date at the Barking Cow. Who's doing what?
Barking Cow, man, I love it. They've tweeted us a few times now.
Yeah.
Boy's a good one. Well, certainly Jeff George to fight people in the bar.
Nice.
I mean, that was a given.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of easy.
Okay.
What? So beer?
Take a fight, a couple dudes, pick up chicks, and 1 to have a nice so pick up chicks and then have a nice ice cream date.
Yeah, obviously I'm going with Jeff George to fight some dudes. Andrew Luck wants to see the entire state of Indiana. He does. So he wants to come to Gaston. He wants to do the ice cream.
Yeah.
And I think women in the state of Indiana fawn over Peyton.
And he'd smooth talk them and make them laugh, and you're in.
Like, how good of a wingman would he be?
Yeah.
Now, he'd probably go home with them before
I was going to say, he'd be too good of a wingman.
Right.
He'd be the guy and no longer the wingman.
I mean, like, how many 43-year-old women in the state of Indiana would be like, yeah, I'm going to leave my husband for Peyton?
Hell, I mean, you could go 25 to 65, I think, and you'd probably have a pretty good number there.
Yeah.
You're right, though. That's
George, yeah. George is, he's the brawler. Peyton's the wingman, and Andrew Luck he doesn't want any sprinkles on his ice cream.
All right, from Connor, it seems that people think that Bobby will just take over from Walker at Mike, but the defense was so lost with Adam last season. Why is there so much disrespect towards Walker that a rookie will just take his position? I am with you there, and I think the Colts acknowledge how big of a challenge that is, not only for any rookie to be your starter at Mike, but Anthony Walker gave you really, really good football last season. Is he as athletic as Bobby Okereke? No, but I don't think we can ignore when Anthony Walker was off the field last year, you missed out. I mean, think back to that Giants game, Week 16. That was just abysmal. You were playing so many different linebackers. I think Ahmad Thomas came up from the practice squad to maybe even start in that game. And that's a reason why you drafted Okereke. You want to get deeper there as well. So yes, I am with you. I don't think that this is anything to where we can just write off Anthony Walker like he's some bum. I think that he will win this competition, but Chris Bauer has said it, and I wrote it on 1070thefan.com earlier today. We're taping this Wednesday afternoon. There's a competition there. There is a battle. Like, it is happening. And maybe we see Walker on the field first and second down, and then Okereke out there on third down. Maybe that's what it turns into. But for now, I still look at Anthony Walker as a guy that just do not take him for granted. Two more here, Kevin. One from Matthew. He wants to know, do you think we draft a quarterback next year to replace Brissett? If so, how high?
It's a good question, Matthew. I think the Colts would love to bring back Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, Jacoby probably wants to go find more of a starting competition somewhere. I don't know, Joey. I probably, and I think I looked it up maybe a month or two ago when we debated the whole trade Jacoby, don't trade him, whatever. I think there's some decent veteran quarterbacks out on the market next spring, but I also think that it would be nice. Can you groom a backup for 4 or 5 years? Now the question is this: if Jacoby Brissett's gone, are you going to draft a quarterback in the 5th round and then he's going to be your backup from day one? I mean, that's a lot of pressure on Andrew Luck to stay healthy.
Yep.
So I think at some point next year they will draft a quarterback, but I tend to think that the backup will come from a veteran.
Gotcha. Last one here. Lucas Robbins. With Kenny Moore's amazing story that just came out and Leonard and Glow helping stranded commuters this offseason, the Colts have some amazing people in their locker room. Either through personal interactions or from what you've heard of them, who do you feel is the nicest Colts player?
Wow. Lucas Robbins, 1B in his name. Man, that's a good one. I'll preface it by obviously saying I don't know these guys fully well.
Right. Personally.
Yes, yeah. Personally. And I'm not just saying this because this is the one guy I do know better than anybody in that locker room, but I think Jack Doyle is an incredibly nice human being. I've always thought Darius Leonard, Joey, is a really, really nice guy and just like super down to earth and just kind of gets it. I'm trying to think of who else. Costanzo, I've always thought is nice, quiet, but nice. Ryan Kelly, probably a little bit more on like the outgoing, friendly side. Costanzo might be a little bit more reserved. Matt Slauson, I thought was really nice last year. I'm trying to go by position group on the defense. Jabal Shear, just super quiet. Nico Autry, super quiet. Anthony Walker, very nice guy. I know he's been on JMV a few times, and I've always thought, even when I've seen Anthony Walker in public, nice guy. Same thing with Matthias Farley.
Oh, yeah.
Pierre Desir. I always think Pierre Desir is a really nice guy. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, like Antonio Morrison was, I mean, he was a dick, in all seriousness. Like if like I don't look at anybody in his locker room like I looked at Antonio Morrison.
And he's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Sure, there are some guys that maybe are not the most friendly, but I don't look at anybody as just being like super standoffish and just like F you sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's a pretty welcoming environment in there, it seems like.
Yeah.
Been there a couple times.
I got two more here to wrap it up.
All right.
One's for my uncle, Daniel Donahue. Which undrafted free agent has the best shot of the practice squad, or is it too early to hazard a guess? It's an article I'm going to write in July, and I know that just based off sheer numbers and injuries, you got to think there's an undrafted free agent that continues a streak of 20-some years of a UDFA making the roster. But I am very, very torn on finding a UDFA that will make this roster, Joey. He asked practice squad. I think there will be a good amount. I think you keep one of the wideouts, Doolin or Hart. We haven't seen Penny Hart at all. He was banged up during the spring offseason program. Hinchis, the tight end, you got to think he would be in the mix. Maybe one of those interior defensive linemen that you have could be in the running as well. But yeah, that's a storyline that's way down on the list when training camp starts in late July, but still notable. And the last one from Jaden: who do you think had the better career, Robert Mathis or Dwight Freeney? Joey, I feel like we debated something like this a couple weeks ago. I think Mathis is the better Hall of Fame candidacy. I do. Freeney's longevity and the fact that he was doing the sacking before Mathis got here is definitely notable. And, it's still an unbelievable career that Dwight Freeney had. Very deserved to go into the Ring of Honor. But I don't know, man. I just think Robert Mathis's impactful plays with strip sacks, to me, that just stands out. And so I think Mathis had the better career.
All right. What we got coming up? We know the training camp schedule. Summer break's officially here, but what's in store for us?
Yeah, like I said last week, plenty of written content on 1070thefan.com. This week I'm trying to think of some of the stuff. We broke down the roster from 90 to 53. Wrote something a little bit deeper in depth on Anthony Walker versus Bobby Okereke, that starting battle, with some comments from Chris Ballard in there. Posted something later this week on Paris Campbell, the area scout Chad Henry that scouted Campbell. Some good insight into the type of player and type of person the Colts are getting in the Ohio State wideout. And, yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
All right, dude. Sounds good.
Probably next Wednesday we'll be back. We'll try and stick to around this time each week throughout the summer. And again, subscribe to our YouTube page, 1070 The Fan on YouTube. You can hit the podcast there, Apple Podcast, Stitcher as well. If you haven't, please leave a rating, leave a review. We would greatly appreciate it. And everybody have an awesome weekend.